What is going on, guys? We're Kingpin Is 12 and we are jumping back into the Ultimate Spider-Man series. Now, you guys have been absolutely begging me to continue this series, and one thing that I absolutely need to point out to you guys is that if you remember, it's been a few days now, so maybe I should jog your memory. The previous issue was solidly based around Agent Carter and S.H.I.E.L.D. and Spider-Man fighting Sandman, etc. And at the very end of the issue, it stated, continued in Ultimate 6. So really, I should be reviewing the Ultimate 6 storyline right now, instead of issue 47 of Ultimate Spider-Man. But I've actually made the decision to continue the Ultimate Spider-Man series just the way it is right now, because if you think about it, this series is in a playlist, so for any of you guys that aren't experienced in comic books, you'll just think, oh, it goes straight to issue 47 and that's fine, whatever. But to bring in another Ultimate 6 series in between Ultimate Spider-Man is a little bit confusing for some of you guys, so I figured what I'd do is review all of the Ultimate Spider-Man comics and then review Ultimate 6, and just put them in a playlist so that they're all in order. So in the playlist, it will go Ultimate Spider-Man issue 46, and then it will go Ultimate 6 storyline, and then it will go Ultimate Spider-Man issue 47. So yeah, hopefully you guys understand and hopefully you agree with me. It just makes it a little bit less hassle and it doesn't confuse you guys as much. But yeah, so if any of you guys are only just joining us, we are on a mission to review every single issue of Ultimate Spider-Man from issue 1 all the way up to issue 133 and beyond. And we're on issue 47 right now. So without further ado, let's jump into this issue and let's go! So we dive into the issue, joining Spider-Man swinging around New York City, and he's absolutely flabbergasted at the fact that there is absolutely nothing happening. There's no crimes, there's no armed robberies, there's no car chases, nothing. Kind of reminds me about that episode out of Spectacular Spider-Man, you know, like where he kind of says the same thing. And then inevitably, a gunshot goes off. As we turn the page, we get reintroduced to Kingpin's muscle men. And if I remember correctly, I'm not too sure because it's just off the top of my head, but I think the three guys are Montana, Fancy Dan, and Ox. And they're actually in the room to threaten this guy called Julio because he's spending money gambling on money that isn't even his to begin with. It's actually Kingpin's money. Now, if you go back a few months ago in the Ultimate Spider-Man comics, Kingpin was caught on videotape murdering someone, and he's actually had to leave the country. And he's actually going to make a reappearance in this comic. So you get that to look forward to. But as you can see, Spider-Man's jumped in there to stop this possible killing going down. And the moment he jumps in there, everything just starts to kick off. Guns are flying everywhere, bullets are going off. And the funny thing about this is that Kingpin's muscle men were actually ordered to keep low. So they're not necessarily supposed to be shooting off guns in the middle of the night. So that's actually going to come back on them when they go see Kingpin later on. Going into my thoughts about this comic panel here and what's actually going on, I love the feeling of just how Spider-Man and Ox and Montana and Fancy Dan all kind of know each other, because these guys were actually in the early Ultimate Spider-Man comics and now we're like, what, 40, 30 issues later, and they meet again, and it's almost like a little bit of a reunion between a hero and an enemy, and that's just awesome. As we spin our webs on and over to the next page, we get reintroduced to Kingpin again. Yes, he's back in New York City, and he's not in jail, which is a pretty big shock considering that he murdered someone on videotape. And you can tell just by his facial expressions from Matt Bagley's artwork that he's definitely not happy with what these guys have done. And I think one of the best things is that Brian Michael Bendis knows that Kingpin doesn't even need any dialogue for you to know that he's definitely not happy, just by the silence coming from him. Now, Kingpin being back in the city is definitely not good news for Spider-Man because, well, Spider-Man put him in jail in the first place, or at least got him convicted for murder, having him to leave the country. And we discover that he spent over $3 million getting back into the country. He's literally spent money, time on his life and everything, and he wants that back from Spider-Man, which is pretty much making him a primary enemy of Spider-Man right now. Now, Kingpin's right-hand man actually does have an interesting way of getting Kingpin his money back, and it is kind of using Spider-Man to get it, but I've actually revealed it, or kind of spoke about it in the previous issues of my reviews. But I'm not going to mention it now because we'll be getting to that pretty soon. But if you guys can remember what I said about it, or at least figure it out, feel free to leave it in the comments below. So this comic is actually really interesting for Spider-Man because not only is Kingpin back, but everybody hates Spider-Man. Like, the newspapers are hating on him, the crowd is hating on him, the pedestrians in the street are throwing stuff at him as he passes by, and pretty much quite a lot of people know his secret identity, and the list goes down from Norman Osborn to S.H.I.E.L.D. to superheroes to Harry Osborn and also to Kingpin, but Kingpin unmasked him but doesn't know who he is, so does that count? As you can see on screen, Peter and Mary Jane are actually talking, discussing this, and I think one of the main things that completes this issue is the inclusion of Mary Jane in there. She kind of gives a little bit of input, and you can see that she even says right there that even this person who's a politician is kind of making a campaign to say that he will take Spider-Man down, and Mary Jane has made the suggestion that maybe someone's actually paying him to do that. these days politicians are kind of really shady people and they kind of take buyouts from powerful people, especially someone like Kingpin or something along those lines. So I wouldn't be surprised if it was true. This also kind of reminds us what Peter has to go through whilst balancing his superhero life with his personal life. And you can see that Spider-Man is still famous in the newspapers for taking down Dr. Octopus, but right now he's not actually that popular. The public seem to hate him a little bit, they seem to be treating him a little bit like a villain, and you can see this woman actually lobs a bottle at him, which is rather surprising because, well, it's kind of an old lady and I can't imagine someone like that doing that. But you can see a crowd of people actually come around and Spider-Man, in a humorous way, swings off with that joke about the hat, which I thought was brilliant. Peter Parker always handling the situation with a pinch of salt, not taking anything too personally. And this is when we get to a pretty vital part of the comic, because this is when Peter actually discovers that Kingpin is free. Kingpin is back in New York and Peter can't exactly get his head around how he managed to walk free from being videotaped murdering someone. Like, seriously, how do you get away with that? And that's obviously because Kingpin is a powerful person, so he can kind of walk through these types of things. And Peter mentions this to J. Jonah Jameson and he gets fired on the spot. So yes, Peter Parker is no longer working for the Daily Bugle, and you can see that everyone around is just kind of looking in like pretty much disbelief, and you can see that Ben Urich has kind of like a frown on his face, but he's actually frowning at J. Jonah Jameson. He's not looking at Peter Parker like that. And that is where the issue comes to a close, with the newspaper of Kingpin smiling on the front cover in Peter's face. Now, what did you think of that issue, guys? Let me know in the comments section below. And something that I want to point out is that Peter does actually stand up for himself towards J. Jonah Jameson in the next issue, and it is just awesome. Like, literally, Peter goes crazy at J. Jonah Jameson, and it is awesome. So I'm going to give this issue an 8 out of 10. Nothing too much happened with Spider-Man or anything like that. It was more about Peter dealing with this situation with everybody hating him, Kingpin returning, J. Jonah Jameson firing him from the Daily Bugle for absolutely nothing, and just the overall feeling of feeling helpless. So yeah, that is it for this video, guys. So go to the links in the description to follow on Twitter and Facebook for all the latest in comic book news and updates. Don't forget to go to my Instagram for the amazing Spider-Man issue 1 giveaway that I'm doing on there. And also for more, hit the subscribe button, hit the like button on this video, and I will see you all later.